All is quiet at the facility where SCP-1027 floats in its containment chamber. The SCP does not seem to react as a guard opens the door to its room. The agent gropes for the light switch. He is new to the SCP Foundation, and this is his first night working on his own. Harsh fluorescent light fills the room. The guard lets out a yelp when he sees SCP-1027 for the first time. Unable to control his curiosity, the guard approaches the containment chamber. SCP-1027 looks like a human nervous system that has been extracted from its body. The brain, eyes, and connected nerves are all exposed, as if some mad doctor perfectly dissected a human. SCP-1027 does not move. Gross, the guard thinks as he taps on the glass casing with his rifle. He jumps back slightly in surprise. It seemed as if the eyeball had twitched slightly to look at him. "So creepy," the guard says out loud. He turns around to exit the room. As he approaches the door, the lights flicker. He begins to walk a little quicker. Suddenly, the lights go out completely, plunging the room into darkness. A moment later, the hum of the fluorescence resumes as the lights come back to life. The guard slowly pivots to look at the containment chamber. SCP-1027 still floats motionless in its saline solution. The guard sighs and chuckles to himself for getting spooked. He turns and walks out of the room, closing the door behind him. He makes it a few steps down the hallway before stopping. The guard smacks his forehead with the palm of his hand. "I forgot to turn off the damn light," he says. He heads back to the room SCP-1027 is contained in. He reaches his hand out to grab the doorknob. It is warm to the touch. The guard turns it and pushes the door open. A scream gets caught in his throat, and only a slight wheeze escapes his lungs. Standing in front of him is SCP-1027. The nervous system seems to pulsate as it reaches its arms out towards the guard, who is paralyzed with fear. The guard feels a slight twinge in his ear as a series of nerves enter his auditory canal. Then he hears a voice inside of his head. It's his own voice, and it's telling him to escape his body. The next morning, SCP agents and scientists return to the site for another day's work. One scientist is surprised to find the door to SCP-1027's room wide open. He steps in and looks around. SCP-1027 floats motionless inside of its saline containment chamber. The scientist shrugs, turns off the light, and closes the door. Later that day, a feeding team enters SCP-1027's room, pushing a cart with a brain of a cow on top of it. The 3 members of the group are wearing Level 4 bioprotective equipment. They enter the room and secure the door behind them. One of the men walks over to the containment chamber and pushes a few buttons. As the liquid in the tube slowly begins to drain, SCP-1027 drops down into a laying position on the examination table below it. When the water is completely gone, the glass tube hisses open. A moment later, SCP-1027 sits up. It looks about the room with its exposed eyeballs. Its nerves wriggle like tiny worms as they sense the world around them. SCP-1027 rotates its body so it's sitting with its legs over the side of the table. The feeding team tries to remain calm, but seeing a nervous system move without an actual body is a bit disconcerting to say the least. Researchers found that SCP-1027 was able to survive without the protective casing of muscles and skin because each nerve cell is surrounded by myelin sheathing 300 times thicker than that of normal human cells. The SCP slowly slides off the table and proceeds towards the cow brain that has been placed in the middle of the room. The feeding team backs as far away from the SCP as possible until their bodies are pressed up against the wall. SCP researchers told them that the containment suits would protect them from 1027, but these same researchers have been wrong before. SCP-1027 stands next to the cow brain and looks down at it. Normally at this point, SCP-1027 would extend its nerves and wrap them around the bovine brain. There would be a slight pulsing, and the brain would begin to denature. It is still unclear if SCP-1027 consumes the actual brain matter, or just feeds on the residual chemical energy that resides in the tissue. The feeding team carries out this procedure once a week, which seems to keep SCP-1027 happy. But this time, SCP-1027 just stares at the brain, as if it is contemplating whether it is worth eating. It is almost as if SCP-1027 isn't hungry. as if it is already eaten. But the team knows that's crazy, as they are the only ones who feed this SCP, and it has been exactly a week since its previous meal. The feeding team turn their heads to look at one another through the clear face shields in their suits. One of the men shrugs as they all turn back to watch what SCP-1027 does next. The SCP lifts its head so that its eyes are looking straight at the feeding team. One of the members reaches behind him, searching for the doorknob. Then SCP-1027 slowly turns around and walks back towards the table. It lays down and goes still.
"Someone needs to lock it back in its containment chamber,"
one of the men says.
"Well, that's Jerry's job,"
responds another as he pushes the man next to him towards where SCP-1027 is laying.
"All right, fine, I'll do it. But if that thing eats me and turns me into an SCP, you two will be the first people I go after."
Jerry walks slowly towards the containment chamber. He stretches his arm as far as it will go to keep as much distance as possible between his body and SCP-1027. Jerry pushes a big red button, and the glass tube hisses close. The containment chamber fills with saline water, and SCP-1027 is once again suspended in the liquid-filled tube. The research team grabs the cart with a cow brain on it and rushes out of the room, slamming the door behind them. They inform the head of the facility of the odd behavior SCP-1027 had exhibited, but he is a busy man and shrugs it off as just an anomaly. "It'll eat when it's hungry enough, give it a week and then try again," the facility commander tells the men. The feeding team walks silently down the hall to the decontamination room, where they will take off their suits and shower as a precaution to prevent the spread of any foreign agents. The peculiar behavior of SCP-1027 lingers in their minds. They enter the room and begin to joke with one another to ease their nerves. This makes them feel better. It is silly to worry about SCP-1027 now that it is safely contained in its chamber once again. They turn the shower heads on and steam slowly fills the room. "I might call out sick next week just to be safe. That SCP is going to be really hungry after missing its meal this week, and I don't want to become a snack," one of the men says as he scrubs his body. "Yeah, that's not a bad idea," responds Jerry. "Who knows what the creepy thing will do if it ever gets out of its containment chamber? Maybe it'll eat our brains. Although there wouldn't be much to eat in your case, Bob," he says, pointing to his teammate. The whole team laughs as the room continues to fill with steam. Jerry's smile slowly fades as he feels something tickle his ear. He uses his hand to brush whatever it was away, but the sensation comes back. Jerry washes the soap from his face and turns around. All he can see is steam. "Hey, you guys, stop messing around," Jerry yells. "What are you talking about, Jerry?" one of the other members of the team asks. Jerry sees the steam move directly in front of him. He rubs his eyes to help him focus through the moisture. When he takes his hands away, an instance of SCP-1027 is standing directly in front of him. He is staring straight into the eyeballs of the nervous system of the guard who had entered SCP-1027's room the previous night. "What the?" But before Jerry can finish his sentence, the instance of SCP-1027 shoves its nerves down Jerry's throat, silencing his voice. It then sticks the nerves of its hand into Jerry's ear. The SCP-1027 instance feels around in Jerry's head until it locates the part of the brain it is looking for and connects to it. Jerry's brain is flooded with dopamine, and chemical signals are transferred from the SCP-1027 instance directly into its victim's brain. Jerry's nervous system now wants to break free of the flesh casing that contains it. "Jerry, you okay over there?" asks Bob. "You've gone, kinda quiet." But there is no response. Jerry's nervous system moves his body towards one of the shower knobs and turns the hot water on full blast. It's hoping that if the water is hot enough, it will scald the skin and muscle tissue, making it easier to remove from the body. Jerry? The other team member says. Suddenly the steam shifts, and the SCP-1027 instance is standing in the middle of the shower room. The remaining members of the feeding team scream in horror. They try to escape but slip on the wet shower floor. SCP-1027 slowly approaches them with its nerves outstretched. The echoing shouts from the feeding team are muffled as a series of nerves enter their bodies. The day continues at the SCP site as if everything was normal. Agents are debriefed on previous missions, scientists experiment on different SCPs, and administrators meet to plan the next acquisition. The sun begins to set and people start to leave for the day. All is quiet that night, as a new security guard makes his rounds. The guard that the administrator of the facility had just hired disappeared without a trace the night before. His disappearance was chalked up to nerves and being too scared to return to work. The new guard checks each room to make sure everything is secure. He approaches the room that contains SCP-1027. He opens the door, flicks on the light, and looks at the SCP floating in its containment tube. "Gross," the guard says out loud. He flicks off the light and continues his rounds. Near the far part of the hallway, the door to the decontamination room is slightly ajar. The guard approaches and pushes it open with his nightstick. He takes one step into the darkness and feels the wall for the light switch. He turns the lights on. There is nothing but a wet floor. The guard shrugs and turns off the lights. He walks through the doorway. As he steps back into the hallway, he is greeted by 4 instances of SCP-1027. The guard opens his mouth to scream as the nervous systems reach out their tendrils and plunge them into his ears, nose, and mouth. Now watch SCP-1548 The Star the Hateful SCP animation, or check out SCP-001 The Children or Borocycle SCP animation.